order the meeting of the Metropolitan Council Transportation Committee for Monday, February 24th, 2020. Our first item tonight is approval of the agenda. Did anyone have any changes or additions to the agenda? If not, I entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Motion second. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And the agenda is approved. Next, we move to approval of the minutes from the January 27, 2020 meeting. Did anyone have any changes or additions? Not, I entertain a motion to approve the
moved.
minutes. I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
And a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. And the minutes are approved. Next, we move on to the TAB Liaison Report. We have Mr. Dugan here. Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, members of the committee, General Manager Koistra, Director Dick Thompson, and of course Jenna, who runs this, puts this all together. From MnDOT, primarily for your constituents, next month, MnDOT will be briefing TAB on the Highway 5 project to the airport, which will, as you know, will be eliminating traffic in one direction. I think it's for about 6 months. So in one way and not out that same way, and then they'll reverse, and that's to replace, I think Director Thompson will correct me, but I think that's to replace or an upgrade to 3 bridges.
Yep.
Thank you. From MPCA, again, for your constituents, they are taking applications now for the Green Corps, an extension of the AmeriCorps, which under MPCA, these young volunteers will be sent to different sites the MPCA is working on to, not volunteer, but to help service the community. The Clean Car Minnesota draft rule is due in March, and the phase 2 of the VW settlement, again, it's going to be hitting the press, getting more and more press. $23.5 million over 3 years, 65% for electrification projects, $7 million for heavy-duty trucks, $5 million for the buses, particularly the school bus fleets, and $3.5 million for charging stations. And the fast charging stations will be spread over the 2,500 miles of Minnesota highway, and it's about 100 miles charged for 30 minutes. Okay. And from the MAC, there's quite a bit of information from the MAC, the Metropolitan Airports Commission. Again, your constituents may be of interest. The TSA is changing over from a 2D X-ray to a 3D X-ray, point being that will have security line impacts. They have, and the World's Fair is, they were saying that they were hoping to have the World's Fair here in 2027. 400 volunteers service the airport. All of the 80 retailers and restaurants have been turned over and they are coming online. The baggage claim area, which is the next significant project, will be done in 2023. However, the first large carousel will be open in a few months, and that's going to feature, instead of the, it's going to have lighting effects and bird sounds. See if it, we'll see. Okay, okay. And then the, I had to do it, I had to. I was going to sing karaoke, but, council members, as Aaron told me not to. Okay. And the art installation is going to rise 2 stories. It is start at baggage claim and go through the ceiling in the ticket lobby. It will be installed by Christmas or the end of the year. It will be interactive, and on the baggage claim floor will be an interactive lake scenario. I'm not quite sure how that's going to work, but I guess you step on something that will show you the lake you're on. And then the top part will be interactive LED where you can wave your arms and do things, and it will play music, talk to you. Hell, joke. Anyway, and ask council members Sterner questions about Dakota County, where we both live. On the consent agenda for tonight are 2 streamlined tip amendments, and Director Thompson will brief you on the policy change in streamlined tip amendments. But I just want to briefly outline why there are tip amendments. And the first one is in Vice Chair Chambliss's district, Spring Lake Park in Fridley, and it was because the fixing up, if you will, of CASA 8, the curbs, gutters, and sidewalks, the work needed to be expanded, and they needed to replace a multi-use trail. And this is all done, the federal funds do not do this, so it's all locally paid for. And then in Councilmember Muse, I hope I'm saying his name right, his district, pronouncing his name right, at E35, East 35th Street in the Belt Line, and the Blue Line, I'm sorry. It's an upgrade of the flashing lights and gates. But what makes this a little bit unique in terms of a tip amendment is the money is coming from another project that couldn't get done. And this is being funded by the Highway, Rail, Grade Crossings, and Rail Safety Funds. Federal funds administered by MnDOT. Okay. And not on the agenda tonight because it does not come to council, our 3 program year extensions that were handled at the tab. So I'll just spend just a minute in going through what a program year extension is and how it impacts the regional solicitation funds and of course the Metropolitan Council. First of all, it has to be from regional solicitation funds. The project cannot be completed in the current project year, and that would be 2020 ending on June 30th. The city or county must notify the council by December 31st. It starts in funding and programming, then goes to TAC, and then to TAB. And it must show, there's a worksheet that they must submit, showing background, progress, and justification, and the project must score 7 out of 10 points to be qualified for a project extension. There's only one-year extension. But the big if is that if it's, in this case, it's Councilmember Sterner's district. If it's extended to 2021, then there's no guarantee the funds will be paid by the federal government in 2021. The city or county, the governmental unit must wait until there's federal funds available. In this case, they will need to wait until 2024 and must fund the project themselves. And it does go into the change goes into the tip, but just as notification. And a reason for a program year extension in Councilmember Sterner's district, it's in the city, town, unincorporated city of Castle Rock, and in Kasai 86, there is a Canadian Pacific-owned trestle bridge that was built in the 1930s. And apparently it works for the railroad company, but it is impacting, or will impact the upgrade of Kasai 86 to a principal arterial. So the Dakota County has been negotiating with Canadian Pacific to get it all done at once, and they've needed more time. And Dakota County Commissioner Holberg spoke in favor of it, and just as kind of an added note, typically program year extensions many times are railroad related. And lastly, this is not on your agenda tonight, but Amy Venowitz, the Deputy Director of Metropolitan Transit Services, updated us on what will become the Regional Development Guide. It's now Thrive 2040, but preparing for Thrive, or whatever it's called, 2050, and the 2050 TPP. And the important part of the TPP is the work program. It's developed by MnDOT, the cities, the counties, and other partners, and it overlays what the projects are going to be going on to 2050, but it actually works in a 3 to 4 year horizon. And things that are in it are, congestion management, connected and autonomous vehicles, CAV, of course, transit being one of the most important, aviation, equity in transportation, and electrical vehicle planning. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Dugan. Are there any questions from council members? All right, we're going to go to Mr. Fenley here quickly. I just do want to say we do have a few members of the public here to comment. One will be after Mr. Fenley's report, and the other one is associated with business item 2020-78. So what we'll do for that is we'll have staff for the business item and then have the members of the public who want to comment on it speak to it at that time. So with that, I'm going to go to the TAC report with Mr. Fenley.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee and staff. David Fenley, the Transportation Accessibility Advisory Committee Chair. I was here for the first time last month. Just wanted to do another quick introduction for you all there. I have one item that I think might be of interest to you that we discussed at our meeting last month, and it is in regards to the amount of accessible space on buses. That would be better known as the priority seating for folks with disabilities. It has been an ongoing discussion informally for many years. On our committee. It is something that was elevated about 3 years ago with the change in the stroller policy. The change in the stroller policy basically said that there is no longer a requirement for people to fold up their strollers. And and folks tend to land in, the space that's on the bus for priority seating. And this is not to say that there should be any sort of contentious relationship between parents and folks with disabilities. What it's to say is that maybe there should be possibly more space, more accessible space on buses. But next month, I would imagine the TAC will be probably formally taking a position on what we think should exist on buses. We are aware that pass-ups, I think is what they're called. That's when an individual who uses a wheelchair or might need accessible seating cannot get on the bus because the accessible seating is taken up by whatever reason. And then there is a policy clearly to have another vehicle, if there isn't a bus with accessible seating on it, to call another vehicle to come get that individual. But we don't like to see any pass-ups. So that is the one issue that I wanted to fill you all in on, and I'm sure I will have some more stuff for you on this and other issues at the March meeting.
Good, thank you very much. Any questions from council members? All right, then we can have our first person who wanted to address the committee is Leanne Potavek. Welcome. If you want to come up and introduce yourself, if you can take about 3 minutes or so.
My name is Leanne Potavek, and I've ridden Metro Mobility for several years now, and I've had my wheelchair since last March due to a knee surgery. My friend Kathleen Reese and myself and a PCA went to Walmart, and we've made this ride for almost a year now, going to Walmart to purchase groceries, and we bring home 2 grocery carts, and we've had no problem in being transported back home. But on February 13th, driver 11708 refused to take us back home, and he said he was going to call dispatch. And we do not know if he did call dispatch or not. He slammed the doors on my friend Kathleen and refused to talk to us any further. And he did not let us know what dispatch said. And he did get back out and put the lift back up and drove off. And we were stranded at Walmart for 2 hours. 1 hour we spent on the phone with a reservationist, Christina, who was being a real bitch. And she kept saying that we couldn't take our grocery carts back with us, even though it's within the rules of transporting us back home again, that we can have grocery carts. It does not limit us to only having 1 grocery cart, but she said that we could only take 1 grocery cart back home with us, that we would have to leave the other one there at Walmart. And my friend spent almost an hour on the phone going around and around with her. And I finally had her give me the phone, and I just told her that this is what she was going to do. And she just kept fussing. And I said, what is going to make you happy? And she said I had to leave the cart there, one of them, or take a cab back home. And neither of us have money to take a taxi back. And it's very difficult to find a taxi that would accommodate wheelchairs, let alone groceries. And I don't understand how one driver can refuse to take us back home, and he no-showed her. And I don't understand why he would no-show her instead of saying that he refused to take us back home, because that would be a mark against her. And if you get 3 no-shows, you're suspended from riding the bus. And the driver that finally did come to take us back home took pictures of what we had. And he was very accommodating. And there was no problem in taking us back home. But we were stranded there for 2 hours. And it seems to be consistently inconsistent in how we get treated when we ride Metro Mobility. And I would like to see this to be stopped. And I would also like to see driver 11708 to be either reprimanded or fired if he cannot follow proper procedure or being cordial to the customers, the handicapped people who depend on this transportation.
Well, thank you so much for coming here today. I'm very sorry to hear about your experience. I'm going to have Jenna come get your contact information, and if you can find the name of the driver who did help, so that we can follow up with you, so we can circle back and get some more information. I really appreciate you taking the time coming out and telling us your story, because it's not always easy to come do things like this, but it's good for us to hear when things go well and when things go wrong. So thank you very much, and Jenna will connect with you back there to get some information so we can let you know how we follow up.
Yeah, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. All right, next we are on to, we've got Metropolitan Transportation Services Director Thompson.
Madam Chair, members, thank you. Just a follow-up on that point, we do have, from what it describes, that does seem to violate our bag policy, and so we allow up to 4 bags of groceries in a cart, and so I'm not sure what happened in that case, but everything that was described should have been allowed in this case. So we'll definitely be able to follow up, and I think we have enough information that we will follow up on that, and I'll update you on the outcome of that investigation. As Peter mentioned, TAB took one action to change their streamlined tip policy. And what their change is, as you notice, when tip amendments come to you, they're on the consent agenda here, because they're very usually routine amendments. And they were we get a lot of those, and TAB was spending a lot of time on routine items and not getting to major items. And so they decided that they're going to have the tip amendments heard at the TAC level. And if they're recommended by TAC, they're going to go on the TAB consent agenda also. So kind of mimicking this, and that's the policy change. I think will allow TAB to have more time to discuss some of the information items and the things that have more weighty things that the TAB should be discussing. But like any consent agenda, the item can be pulled to the non-consent at any meeting. So I think that was a good change, because we look back and all the tip amendments had been routine and all had been approved, but they've been spending a lot of time on those. So that was unanimously approved by TAB and didn't have to come to this for a policy change. The other good news is as soon as I get done saying this, we'll be releasing the application for the regional solicitation. So it'll be open to cities, counties, and any applicants to apply for that now through April 16th. And so they can start putting in their applications and submitting them for review. And we do training starting this week for all the applicants on how to use the program and that. And we've had some good participation by all our local partners to date, but it's official. And so we'll be sending out in Gov delivery to all cities and counties in your area, and those that typically apply. So they'll be getting that notice this afternoon that it's open and they can start applying. The other thing is some of you have attended our spring or fall Metro Mobility convenings in the past. We did get a request this year from the deaf-blind community if they could have their own convening just for those to talk about their issues that they want to talk about with Metro Mobility. And so we have scheduled that for March 23rd. It does happen to be the same time or same day as the Transportation Committee. It'll start at 3. I'll send out the information. It's nearby, but unfortunately, it'll probably overlap in the Transportation Committee. But we definitely wanted to accommodate that request. members of that community felt they had some unique issues for their disability. They wanted to just focus on that at one of the convenings. So we're happy to accommodate that this year, and we look forward to hearing from them. And then the other thing Peter mentioned that was at TAB was the work plan for the next TPP, and we will be coming to the full council committee of the whole on March 4th to talk about what and get your input on what should we be working on from a transportation planning purpose for studies and regional priorities at the council that will feed into the 2050 plan. And we've been getting really good feedback at TAB and other places, and so we want to come back to you as a council and get your input, and we'll present the information there, take your input, and then there'll still be more time for you to have ideas for what we should work on. And that's really the work that we work on that really changes policy and investment in the TPP in the next plan in 2050. So that'll be coming up soon. And with that, Madam Chair, that concludes my remarks. Happy to take any questions.
All right, questions for Director Thompson? If not, we'll move on to General Manager. Oh,
Chair, did you say deaf blind community or the deaf and the blind community?
Deaf, blind.
Deaf blind, perfect, thank you.
all right, on to General Manager Quistra.
Yeah, Madam Chair and council members, I'll be quick. I know we have a full agenda tonight. First, I want to mention on the hiring update that we have nearly 50 operators in training primarily from the one-day event and the follow-up applications that we've received. We have many more coming into our program. We start a new class every week, and that class fills up, as you can imagine, because of the success of our one-day event. 30 of those operators are going to be starting in March. So that's good news. And I think we mentioned before that the one-day event brought in between 250 and 300 applicants. Since then, we're up to 500, and I think that a lot of that can be attributed to the publicity around the one-day event. And even last Saturday, this past weekend, we interviewed around 70 applicants, and I believe that 57 or 58 of them are moving on to the next step. So we are continuing to take applications. I want people to know that. I don't want them to think this is a reason not to apply. We have retiring operators. We have other good reasons for turnover, and we want to continue to take applications. But we are reaping the benefits of the one-day event, and it's really exciting to see a number of new operators come on, and the improvement that this is going to make to our reliability and service on a day-to-day basis. I'll also mention as good news, the electric bus services are working. Continue to work well. I mentioned before that we had our online chargers that were working after a year of waiting for them to work, and they continue to be working well, and we're excited about what we're seeing in the progress. We still have some work to do on the buses, but things are looking forward in ways they haven't looked forward in the past. So we're really happy that the depot chargers in the garage is working and the online chargers are working, and there's some other minor issues that need to be worked through, but it's good news on the electric bus front right now. A few events coming up. The annual Black History Month celebration at Haywood is going to occur on February 28th at the Haywood Garage between 10:30 and 2 p.m. The actual program begins at 11 a.m. and that will feature Chair Zelli, Mayor Melvin Carter, and I believe Chief Frizzell is also speaking at the Black History Month celebration. Again, this year we're having free rides on St. Patrick's Day, March 17th. There's no such thing as free rides, so they're underwritten by Miller Lite, but they're free to the public who are using them. And the free rides will be offered between 6 p.m. and 3 a.m. Tuesday night and early Wednesday morning. This promotion has a 23-year history with us. And then finally, I want to mention Transit Appreciation Day. We're going to recognize our bus and operators on Wednesday, March 18th. Breakfast and lunch will be served at our garages and rail facilities between 4 and 7 a.m. and then the lunch between 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. It's a great day to ride, and share your thanks to our bus operators. Brian Funk, who's here today, has cards to hand out to you for thanking and expressing appreciation to the bus operators. So those are going to be made available. I think he's going to hand those out right now. Other than that, Madam Chair, I think that's it.
Perfect. Any questions for John Manager? Councilmember Cummings?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So given that our light rail operators come from our pool of bus operators, in 2023, we plan to be operational with the Green Line extension. How many additional drivers or how many operators will that pull from buses that we will also need to replace?
I don't have that number offhand. Let me find out. And I'll get back to you, and I'll send an email to you and all the other members of the committee, if that's okay.
Thank you.
Additional questions? Councilmember Gonzalez?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick question about the applicant pool. Some of the characteristics of that pool, I'll be interested in knowing the demographics. Are they from the area? Are they coming from out of state? Just to get a picture of who those folks are.
Sure.
See if we can, have a feeling as to who are they.
We'll get that information out to you for sure.
Thank you.
All right, additional questions? Councilmember Atlas and Hubbardston?
Can we get an invitation to the 28th? Like a calendar invitation?
Yeah, I can make sure that we send you.
I think that's helpful for all of the
yeah.
events.
Sure.
You're
that you
reading my
mentioned,
mind. I wanted that for that, and the same thing, a placeholder for Transit Driver Appreciation Day, because then we all, sooner it's on our schedule, the better.
We'll send both out, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Additional questions, comments? Councilmember Chambliss?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Quaster, I was curious, do you have a projection on what these new applicants might do to our bus driver shortage? You know, how
Madam Chair, maybe I'll ask
well is
Brian
it going?
Funk, who would have more specific information on that.
Good afternoon, folks. Madam Chair, Council Member. Right now, with our projections based on incoming classes of 10 to 12 every week, also factoring out retirements, other reasons for leaving service, transferring to new positions, we're projecting that we'll be back to sort of more of that ideal complement in that late May, early June timeframe. We're also planning another one-day hiring event late April to continue to advance this and not let up.
Thank you.
Councilmember Chambliss?
Okay, so if we do get caught up in the summer, what's my train of thought? If we do get caught up in the summer, is that, lost my train of thought. It'll come back to me.
It happens to all of us.
Yeah, I know with the a full load of bus drivers, we have been tapping into the extra money that. So what is going to happen with that?
Yeah, Madam Chair, I believe you're referring to tapping into the driver savings shortfall as a way to fund some of our security needs and our increased security presence. And my anticipation is that we will have enough savings even by June to fund what we need, what we can do for the year with respect to the security commitment that I mentioned to you at the council meeting the other day.
All right, additional questions for General Manager Quaistra? All right, thank you. Next, we are on to our first item of business, which is the consent agenda. There are 2 items on consent tonight. I'd entertain a motion to approve the items on consent.
So moved.
A motion, is there a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay, and the consent items passed, and we'll move as consent to the full council. Non-consent items, our first item tonight is business item 2020-7, public hearings for Orange Line Connecting Bus Study Concept Plan. We have Cindy Harper.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Cindy Harper. I am the manager of Route Planning, Metro Transit Service Development Division. And as has been our past practice, now that the Metro Orange Line is under construction, we are also now starting to review how bus routes in the area will connect with those Orange Line stations. Our connecting bus study is an analysis that we do whenever we have a major change in the transit landscape, such as a new transitway. So today I'd like to provide some project background and then ask for committee approval to start the public hearing process. First, a little background on the Orange Line itself. Involves 12 stations spread out over 17 miles and will feature all-day frequent station-to-station service on I-35W. Orange Line mostly replaces existing Route 535 and will feature off-board fare collection and other transit advantages to ensure a faster trip. It will provide access to more than 50,000 jobs, primarily in suburban areas, and 80,000 residents outside of downtown Minneapolis. The project is fully funded. We broke ground last year. We're under construction and on schedule to open late next year. So here's a map of our connecting bus study area. It includes parts of South Minneapolis, Bloomington, Richfield, and Edina. It includes 21 bus routes that either currently connect with Orange Line stations today or can easily be extended to connect with an Orange Line station, as well as other routes that where potential service improvements, even though they may not serve an Orange Line station, can help enhance the connectivity of the area. Now, I know that 21 routes may sound like a lot, but we are expecting maybe about half of them to have significant changes proposed. And also, I'd like to point out that although the Orange Line itself will travel as far south as Burnsville, that Burnsville is not included in our connecting bus study. Minnesota Valley Transit Authority is the operator of service in that area, and we've talked with them. They prefer to handle the process separately of how the connecting routes for the two Burnsville stations will be handled. So we will certainly work with them and coordinate our changes together. There's 3 reasons why we're doing this study. First of all, most of the Route 535 service will be replaced by the Orange Line. However, there are 4 local branches, which are shown on this map here, that will not be replaced by the Orange Line. And so we need to figure out how to integrate those service in those 4 areas into our regular bus route network. Also, we know that many Orange Line riders are expected to transfer from a bus or a train to get to the Orange Line station. And so connecting bus service, high quality connecting bus service, will be essential to the success of the Orange Line. And then finally, it's a good opportunity for us to revisit the overall transit needs in the study area at a more holistic level. Instead of looking at routes individually, being able to kind of take a step back and look at this as a sub area of the region. The last time that we really had the opportunity to do that in this particular area was before the Blue Line opened, which was about 15 years ago. The goals of the connecting bus study include linking significant concentrations of residents, particularly underrepresented populations and those who rely on transit the most, linking them with jobs, particularly those that are paying under $40,000 a year, and with services available on the Orange Line. Also, to retain our existing riders and to grow ridership. It's also a good opportunity for us to simplify the route network, to clean up some of the branches and some of the complications of routes that can make service intimidating for some of our customers to even figure out exactly which trip is going where. So we're looking to simplify our routes, as well as enhance the mobility and connectivity of the overall network. And then finally, with the exception of the Route 535, which will be replaced by the Orange Line, our goal is to complement but not replace existing commuter and express service in the 35W South corridor. So here's our process for completing the study. There are 3 different touch points where we will be coming back to the Transportation Committee today to start the public hearing process. We'll be back next month when we will actually present the concept plan, the details of the proposed changes. And then later this year, when we are asking for final approval on the recommended plan. So we actually started this last fall. We have an existing conditions report, and we did a round of stakeholder engagement that I'll discuss in just a minute. As I mentioned, we're currently finishing up our concept plan, and we'll bring that forward next month. And then we'll have in the spring the public review period for the concept plan. We plan to spend the summer modifying the plan based on what we hear back from the public, and then our goal is to bring that later this year to wrap up the process. we like to try to have the final service plan sewn up about a year before the transitway opens. There's enough other things to do in the year before opening day that having the details of the bus plan nailed down, we found that to be quite helpful. So as I mentioned, before starting work on the concept plan, we did some preliminary outreach and engagement last fall. Our goals were to educate riders about the Orange Line itself, as well as inform our stakeholders that the connecting bus study was starting, and to gather feedback on the improvements they would like to see included in that plan. So we have a website that includes our existing conditions report, as well as a full outreach and engagement report on the work we did last fall. That included, we had a survey that was available both online and paper version, and that was in English and in Spanish. We received over 500 surveys back. We also had got the word out to folks about the plan, or about the study launching through electronic rider alerts, social media postings. We had staff that was out riding a lot of different trips, particularly on the Route 535, since that is the route that we most impacted by this, since it will be replacing the Orange Line, or replaced by the Orange Line. And then we also had 3 open houses last fall. And just a quick summary of what we learned from that survey. Good news is that about 2/3 had heard of the Metro Orange Line before we were talking to them that day. Approximately 60% ride either every day or most days. And about 70% of those that we surveyed were taking the trip to or from work. Not surprisingly then, about 70% of those trips were happening during the peak period. We asked which routes they were riding at the time, and the 3 that are highlighted in yellow were the routes that were mentioned most frequently, the 535 as well as the 2 light rail lines. And the 535 makes sense because we've spent a lot of time out on those out on buses on those trips talking to the customers. Most said the Orange Line would favorably affect their travel. And that's assuming that we have key connections in place between destinations such as Normandale College, Lyndale and Penn Avenues in Bloomington and Richfield, and 94th and James Industrial Park in Bloomington, assuming we have some key connections in place between those areas and the Orange Line. So, as I mentioned, we are currently working on the concept plan, which we'll bring back to this committee next month. And then April will be a very busy month for us, as our goal is to wrap up this phase of the outreach and engagement and the public feedback before we get into summer and everyone's attention kind of turns to other things. So we will be spending the month of April there'll be lots of different ways for customers to comment and give us their feedback. Of course, we'll be utilizing our website, as well as we'll have brochures on all the buses with a postage paid comment card that's inside the brochure that they can tear off and just stick in the mail. We will be, we've been fortunate to have the community outreach and engagement staff person who is dedicated to the Orange Line to help us with our part of the project. And so be engaging a lot of the various stakeholders within the community, neighborhood associations and other civic groups and just other active stakeholders in the community. We'll be out on buses making announcements about the upcoming, that the concept plan is out there, and this is everyone's chance to comment on the proposed changes. Also getting out to key locations and having pop-up events, and doing internal outreach, both with Metro Transit operators, so that if customers are asking what's going on, they have some, they're able to help out. But also a significant amount of the service in the study area is operated under contract to MTS. So we'll be reaching out to those providers as well to make sure their operators are in the loop. And then we will also have 2 community meetings and then 1 public hearing. The format for all 3 meetings is exactly the same, just one has a legal designation, but we'll handle them all the same. In Edina, Bloomington, and then the actual public hearing in downtown Minneapolis. And so the proposed action from the business item for today is for the Metropolitan Council to authorize the public hearing on proposed service changes outlined in the Orange Line bus study concept plan. and I'd be happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you. Questions? Councilmember Atlas Ingebrigtsen.
Thank you, Chair. Can you outline what will be different between the community meetings? I have an assumption, but I want to make sure it's accurate, and the public hearing.
Chair Barber and members of the committee, the only difference between the community meetings and the public hearing will be that the public hearing carries a 45-day requirement that it needs to be approved by the council at least 45 days before that date. That's what starts the clock, which is why I'm here before we have our concept plan finished. The format of the meetings will be exactly the same. We will start off with kind of more of a kind of an informal open house time, and then we will have a formal presentation. People, when they, depending on how many people there, everyone who wants to speak can sign up when they for an opportunity and have 3 minutes, much like we do for other public meetings. Once everyone has had their opportunity to comment, if we still have time, then we can open it up to others as well. It is mostly an opportunity for staff to listen. We will certainly have, the comment cards and stuff available there, and have, be able to take notes, but really at that point, it's an opportunity for us to listen, not necessarily to be defending or discussing, just to listen and then take that back. Based on prior studies of this kind of nature that we've done, we usually end up making changes to at least about half of the bus routes that are in the plan. You'll see some sort of a change from the concept plan to the revised version. So it is definitely, we anticipate we'll have a busy summer.
And all information from the community meetings and from the public comment and the public hearing will go into the public comment report. Councilmember Atlas Ingebrigtsen.
I just am a little curious and concerned possibly regarding the timing of the meeting in Minneapolis is 11 to 1 during the workday, and I'm curious about, and the other locations are suburban locations and in the evening. So I'm just curious if that's adequate opportunity for residents who might be using the line in Minneapolis to participate.
Chair and members of the committee, certainly we can take a look at whether we should add an additional community meeting. The only piece that we need the approval on today is the actual public hearing. So we have time if we'd like to, if you think we should go back and look at adding another community meeting in South Minneapolis, we can do that.
And just and have you done other hearings from 11 to 1 in downtown Minneapolis, and what's that attendance like?
We have.
Who is there?
So chair and members of the committee, we have experimented with a variety of times, but we have done some over the noon hour in downtown. And what we have found in terms of people attending those meetings is it's a very convenient location for folks who are already downtown during the workday to be able to come. It doesn't matter which meeting you come to. You don't even have to come to a meeting. We treat all of the public comment exactly the same, whether it's an email, it's a comment card, somebody actually comes to the meeting. We don't weight what's at a meeting any different than any other approach. So there's certainly nothing that says you have to come to a meeting to be heard. We also recognize that no matter when you have the meetings, it's never going to be convenient for everyone. So we'll also be putting the presentation that will be given at the meetings. We'll be making that available on our website as well. So folks at their convenience can listen to the details, and then we will have lots and lots of different information from the report actually posted on the website as well. Tons of different maps and tables and charts and fun things to look at.
Councilmember Chambliss.
I just wanted to comment that I agree that in order to be more inclusive for the region impacted by this orange line, that a community meeting in the evening would be good, even though we're focusing on the hearing today.
Okay.
Additional questions from council members? All right, if not, I would entertain a motion to approve business item 2020-7.
So moved.
A motion, is there a second? There's a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we're on to business item 2020-28. It's authorization to amend Hastis license and support agreement. We have Adam Harrington and Kristen Thompson. Here's Chris. Welcome.
Yes, Kristen. Good afternoon, Madam Chair and council members. I'm Kristen Thompson, the Assistant Director of Service Development at Metro Transit. I'm here today to present business item 2020-28, which is the purchase of Hastis Minbus software. I'd like to start by providing a little context about our scheduling process and how this tool will fit in. The scheduling team at Metro Transit creates the schedules for all fixed route bus and rail service. We are downstream from the planning process, so as Cindy described the planning process, we then take those inputs and create the schedules for vehicles, operators, and customers. So our goal is to create accurate, cost-effective schedules that are reliable to operate throughout the system. The main software system that we use is called Hastis. Hastis we use in scheduling as well as a daily dispatch software and to create accurate payroll records. So the scheduling process follows sort of a stepwise approach. We start by building a logical timetable for each route that has appropriate service levels, frequencies, travel times for the route that we're dealing with. Once the route timetables are complete, we create what are called vehicle schedules. That represent what the bus or a train does for the course of a day. This means we're linking together scheduled trips from the route timetables. We then put together operator shifts. This takes a variety of forms, part-time and full-time shifts, different lengths of runs, so we're following with the work rules that we have established at Metro Transit. Scheduling also produces data for customer information systems that are used in our transit information system, out on Google and other various apps that draw in our data. So Hastis plays a key role in this process. It's been our bus and rail scheduling system since 2004. We're currently using version 2014. It's a highly specialized software used for transit scheduling and dispatch and related functions. It's our prime source for vehicle and operator schedules. It's sort of the root of everything. From Hastis, we generate weekly data interfaces that go to those downstream functions that I mentioned. I want to return to the vehicle scheduling process because this is what Minbus will help us with. So as I mentioned, a block is the sequence of trips that is done by a single vehicle during a service day. There are many inputs and considerations in the process that our staff are working through. For example, the travel times that are needed or the bus type that's required for that kind of service. Blocks can range from 2 hours long in the peak period to up to 20 hours long for a full day. Blocking has a big impact on our overall system cost, the hours, miles, and buses that we need to operate the system, as well as the customer experience and the quality of the work that our operators are driving. So Minbus is a Hastis optimization tool that will help us to improve our vehicle blocking process. It's an add-on to our current system. It's kind of the next level up from the tools we have today. It will give us a more powerful set of tools for blocking. This will help us to create more efficient and reliable schedules, help us manage different resource constraints like our current operator shortage. And it can also help us to evaluate changes to garage usage. So for example, when the Minneapolis bus garage opens, we'll want to reevaluate how our work is distributed throughout the system, and this tool can help us with that. So Minbus is only available from Giro, the vendor of Hastis, as it's part of the overall Hastis software environment. The price of the module itself is just over $216,000. To purchase Minbus, we need to amend the license and support agreement that we signed with our last Hastis upgrade. So that was signed back in 2013. So because we're amending a contract that was more than $1 million in the first place by more than 10%, that's the need to come to you today. The annual maintenance and support costs will be rolled into the IS budget. That's about $23,000 per year. Because Hastis is the specialized software that it's only available from one vendor, and this type of software, there's only a few vendors worldwide, so that's not an option to purchase from an MCUP vendor or the like. So with that, I'd like to recommend that the Metropolitan Council authorize the regional administrator to amend the 2013 contract with Giro by $216,255 to purchase the Minbus module for the Hastis software system. With that, I'd be happy to take any questions that there may be.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for the presenter? All right. If not, then I'd entertain a motion to approve business item 2020-28.
So moved.
Motion, is there a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Next, we're on to business item 2020-51, request for proposals for 2020 through 2034 bridge inspection and engineering services. We have Tom McGannon.
Madam Chair, council members, my name is Tom McGannon. I'm with Engineering Facilities. This is that the Met Council authorized the regional administrator to award an executive contract 19P219 with Kimley Horn and Associates in the amount up to $2.651 million for engineering support services, structures, inspections on existing future structural assets from 2020 to 2024. Project history and Metro Transit responsibilities. Metro Transit responsibilities are to manage structures safety inspection program in accordance with the National Bridge Inspection Standards, NBIS, MnDOT, Federal Rail Administration, FRA standards, and report of structures inventory and conditions information to MnDOT, which is a Structures Information Management System. It's SIMS and FRA. Metro Transit has the overall obligation to ensure its structures do not represent unacceptable safety risks to the public. Metro Transit structures requiring inspection include freight, LRT, road, pedestrian, bridge, tunnels, retaining walls, culverts, and parking garages. We started inspecting bridges in 2006. We extended that to include pedestrian bridges and tunnels in 2016. 2018, we acquired the Bass Lake Spur Track from Canadian Pacific. So we have freight, and then in 2019, last year, we started inspecting the structures, parking structures, and freight bridges, excuse me. So the inspection contract was issued, or the proposal was issued September 25th. We had 19 companies review the plans, 3 proposed, and through the Brooks Act, which is a 2-step process. You do not see the prices, but you evaluate the submittals on the most technically qualified proposal. We chose Kimley Horn for the most technically qualified proposal. We looked at the price, the price that was sealed. The rest of them were sent back. We didn't see those. So through price negotiations, we negotiated down to $2.61 million over the next 5 years. The contract is issued under work orders for the next 5 years. So whenever we have a task, we'll issue a work order. So at the end, it might not equal 2.65, but that's what the contract is. Kimley Horn has met the 5% DBE goal. Through the inspections, it's performed safety inspections, bridge capacity analysis, submit the SIMS reports on existing, new, and removed structures. There's 43 existing structures, and at the end of the 5 years, which is 2024, there's expected to be 58 new structures in our inventory. So we're also, when it comes up, we'll perform emergency inspections when needed. And the last one was last year, where there's a landslide near the Washington Avenue Bridge. So estimated yearly inspection costs. So for 2020, we're going to be inspecting 25 or 25 assets. So the number of inspections per year vary depending on when they were commissioned and scheduled. Most bridges are inspected every other year. Some bridges are every year. Freight bridges are every year. The contract will be issued in work orders per task oriented and then per structure. The new structural assets are anticipated to be built in 2022. So the blue is the existing, the orange is future. So if the future is not built in, say, 2022, it'll be moved over to the next year, and by task order, it would just be, the blue would be billed, and then like the last year would be every other year, that would be moved off the table. So we're only billing in the tasks that we actually do. Requested action is that the Metro Council authorize the regional administrator to award and execute contract 19P219 with Kimley Horn and Associates in the amount up to $2.65 million for engineering support services, structures inspections of existing and future structural assets from 2020 to 2024. Is there any questions?
Questions for the presenter? Councilmember Cummings?
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, on your estimated yearly inspection cost, you've got 2020 to 2014 bridge instead of 2024. In case you're going to use this presentation, you might want to change that. My question, though, is approximately, and I realize it's a little bit different, and we add assets and assets leave and so forth, but how does this compare to the last contract when that was initiated several years ago? Are we going way up in cost, or?
It's pretty much in line for what we've been doing. Last contract was for 3 years, and we had 2 different consultants, one on the blue line, one on green line and North Star. So this time around, we're just doing a 5-year contract with one consultant.
But you're not seeing great increases in the costs generally.
Madam Chair, council members, some of the costs are increasing because in the past we were using some Metro Transit vehicles like high rail bucket trucks so we can do some of the inspections. Now some of those costs are going to the consultant because we're not going to supply some of those vehicles. Now they have to rent those, so some of those costs are going to be higher for inspections.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Chambliss?
I just wanted to comment that I'm glad that high on the decision was the most technically qualified Prosper. And I'm also glad to hear that Councilmember Cummings asked questions about the cost too, because a lot of times you see that the performance and the or the lowest cost seems to be more of a priority, but we definitely want to make sure that our roads and our pedestrian bridges and tunnels are safe. So appreciate this opportunity to make such an important decision.
Madam Chair, council members, as we do an inspection 1 year, the next time that is going on, we'll be tracking the exact cost of that. So depending on if it's low or high, that'll be adjusted also. So if it is high, it'll be lower the next time.
Okay, additional questions? Councilmember Gonzalez?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick question about the scope of the work of the inspectors. So I'm thinking about whether during those inspections they also look at ways to make sure that trespassers, graffiti artists, and people like that cannot access the facility, or can they make recommendations of what changes can be done to improve that part of the security of the facility, or they just limit their inspection to the structural aspect of the asset?
Madam Chair, council members, it's strictly an inspection. They're not out there to give any advice on that part of it. There are things that our maintenance crews do to deter graffiti and that, but that's as far as inspections do. They're there strictly for inspections.
All right, thank you.
Okay, additional questions? All right, if not, I would entertain a motion to approve business item 2020-51.
So moved.
Have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those no. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next, we're on to business item 2020-52, which is a same week item. It's a change order for Mall of America Transit Station renovation project contract. We have Derek Ruby. Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair and committee members. As mentioned, my name is Derek Burby. I'm a principal engineer within engineering and facilities within Metro Transit. And you may recall me being here a few short months ago at the end of October to amend our contract with our design consultants that we had on the Mall of America Transit Station. With some of those items that were amended with our design, we've also come up with a few other items that we need to implement to make the non-public portion of the facility usable. A lot of those items are in the police department space. Department of Corrections has required additional vestibules to be added. Those vestibules also include scramble pads, cameras, and a few different things that weren't in the original design of the project. Additionally, our operators have learned that while our old station was back in the lower level of the parking lot, even more than our new one is, the radio frequencies that were down there were much easier to be used as soon as you hop out of a bus or train. A lot of our operators are actually losing signal in their radios the minute they leave their train or their bus itself. So one of the things that we're looking to do with this change order amendment to the construction contract is adding additional repeaters and a train or a signal system all the way up to the top floor of the parking lot on the east side of the mall itself. So additionally, some hose bib additions out on the platforms to allow for cleaning and better services to our riders. The original contract did include quite a bit of additional temporary facilities as well. So with that, we know that we're working with our contractor on DBE goals. The DBE goal that was originally part of this project will continue and will be met. A lot of the work that's being done is being done by contractors that are disadvantaged businesses. So that will continue to follow through itself. So also, I see a few familiar faces from our grand opening that we had just a week ago last Friday down at Mall of America. So I would certainly suggest, if you have not been able to have a chance to go out there and check out the public spaces of Mall of America, certainly do so. It's a great investment in our area and something that our riders are definitely taking advantage of. So with that, I'd like to propose the action to allow the regional administrator to initiate and execute a contract change order to Morcon Construction. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for the presenter? Just a quick comment. It is lovely. So yeah, if anyone, it's the busiest transit station in the state. If you go, it's really, the change is amazing. So anyhow, with that, then I would entertain a motion to approve business item 2020-52 same week.
So moved.
A motion, second. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those nay. Motion carries. Thank you. All right, next we're on to business item 2020-56, light rail passenger seating purchase. We have Jay Wesley. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, committee members. Thank you for your time today. My name is Jay Wesley. I'm a project manager for light rail vehicle maintenance, and I'm here today to request the committee's consent to proceed with a contract to procure parts for changing the onboard seating for our light rail vehicles. I would like to briefly take you through the project justification and then allow some time for your questions. Our current passenger seating has cloth covering that is resource intensive to clean and maintain, both in terms of labor and material. Our staff must remove the seat parts from the trains to properly clean and disinfect those parts, and then set them aside for air drying on racking. When the fabric is stained or damaged, we have to send that whole part out to a third-party vendor to have it recovered in new fabric. This is becoming a bigger issue as time progresses. In 2019, we saw a 48% increase in incidents on board the vehicles involving biohazard components, which is one of the main reasons why we need to clean and replace the cloth on these seats. In the past year, the maintenance department has spent over 1,600 labor hours addressing biohazard cleanup and sent out 3,900 seat parts to be recovered. Plastic seats will be more efficient to maintain for our staff since they will require less situations in which we'll have to remove them from the vehicle to properly clean. This means less labor will be required and less material cost over time due to the elimination of the fabric recovering. We've tested plastic seating on the blue line on 6 vehicles over the past 2 years, and based on customer feedback that we've received, we also think that plastic seats will improve customer experience on board, especially during the wintertime when customers put snowy feet or luggage up on the seat in front of them. The cloth covering does a pretty good job of hiding the moisture that might be left behind until, of course, you take a seat on that chair and discover whether or not it is potentially icy. Plastic seats should be easier for many of our customers to tell what might be on that seat before sitting down. We also received comments from customers noting that they liked having the ability to wipe the plastic seats down themselves for added peace of mind. Here's a shot of our current cloth seating on board a train with a sample of a plastic seat back laid over the top on the left-hand side as a comparison. I just want to note that the part that we will make with this contract will not be exactly the same as what you see here. For this procurement, we'll be producing over 13,400 pieces to fit the different seat frames used on our vehicles. The Office of Equal Opportunity has reviewed this procurement for contracting opportunities for small businesses. There were no DBEs available to manufacture or provide this seating, therefore no DBE goals were applied to this procurement. We had an invitation for bid for this project advertised on November 22nd, 2019. There were 3 plan holders. The Metropolitan Council Procurement Department facilitated a public bid opening on December 31st, and there was 1 bid received. Procurement then conducted an adequate competition determination and determined there was no indication that the council's specifications were restrictive and that there was adequate competition. Visual Productions Group, Inc. was found to be the sole responsive and responsible bidder. Funding for this project is available through the 2020 light rail operating budget, and if we proceed, we anticipate the finished goods from this contract will be received and installed on the vehicles by Q4 of 2020. So, in summary, we are seeking for the committee's approval to proceed with this contract totaling just under $1.8 million to produce these parts. And at this point, I would be happy to take any questions.
General Manager
I was just going to mention, as part of the operating expense, the counties are paying for part of this cost.
All right, questions from council members. Councilmember Cummings?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Why do you think there was only 1 bid?
Madam Chair, committee member, I don't know exactly what the reasoning was behind the other plan holders that did not submit a bid in this instance. I have not received that feedback.
Councilmember Cummings?
Do we ever go back and ask, why did you not bid?
I believe the procurement department may undertake those questions. I simply have not heard what the feedback is.
Okay.
Councilmember Fetson?
Thank you, Chair. Just to be clear, so on the plastic seat example comparison, it shows just the seat back being replaced, but I see on slide 8 the number of new seat backs and bottoms matches up. So this is replacing both the seat backs and the bottoms.
Madam Chair, council member, yes, committee member, it is for seat backs and bottom pieces.
Thank you.
Councilmember Chambliss?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Since we're replacing both the seat back and the seat cover, is there a reason why it's not a one piece, or is there a price advantage? Was that looked at?
Madam Chair, committee member, the seat frame that these pieces fit into are set up such that currently they accept two separate pieces, and for ease of removal, we are going to follow that same setup.
Okay. Councilmember Sterner?
Thank you, Chair. I was wondering, was there a staff estimate of a cost before it went out for bids? What we were thinking it was going to come back as?
Madam Chair, committee member, we did conduct some initial quotations to get an idea of what the cost would be, and they were wide-ranging. On the high end, over $2.2 million, and on the low end, under $1 million for the non-binding quotations I received.
Councilmember Sterner?
I guess, thank you, Chair. I just was, I'd like to make a recommendation to reject this bid and send it back out for other bids in that. I don't feel this is a qualified bid. Like to have another chance to get other bids with this one.
Okay, so are you making a motion for that?
I'll throw it out there, but yes, I'd be willing to make a motion at some point, but I'd like to maybe see if there's other council has any discussion on this one.
Okay, so there's a motion on the floor to not approve business item 2020-56. Is there a second? Okay, if there's not a second, did I get a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, all right, second. All right, is there any other discussion? Councilmember Fredson?
I guess I would be interested in hearing from the general manager, some advice from staff on this.
Yeah, Madam Chair, council members, I would just repeat somewhat what has been said, that we have gone out for bid, that we have a qualifying bid. We're anxious to get these replacement seats installed. We have issues on our trains about the cleanliness of our seats. They're aging. It's costing money to maintain them. That's unnecessary. And I don't know what the time frames would be to reopen the bid, but I think it would put this again then some months out. It's already going to take some time to install them. So I think we feel comfortable. I just want to say, if we feel comfortable with the bid, we feel comfortable with the bid amount based upon what we saw as estimates before. And I'll just say we're anxious to get these installed and improve the cleaning process and improve the comfort of our customers.
Councilmember Ferguson?
The cost savings per year of new seats in?
Madam Chair, committee member, we estimate the potential savings to be around $215,000 a year.
Any additional discussion? Councilmember Cummings?
Thank you. I think that the points that General Manager Koister brought up are enough to move forward with this. However, I would say I would be really interested in going back to find out, because it is unusual that there would be interest but only a single bid. So I hope that we can go back and find out what it was that caused people not to actually follow through with the bid.
Okay, additional discussion? Councilmember Chambliss?
I just want to say I feel comfortable when I do bids for my house or for my life, or when I do get estimates, I always try to get more than one. So I feel like we really do need to strongly do that due diligence and get, try to get multiple bids with multiple estimates, or present to the council, these are the past estimates that we've seen and this looks good against that. That would make me as a council member feel a little bit better if I could see that information.
Additional discussion. Councilmember Sterner.
Yes, I just was wondering how long these seats would last, or they last for the duration of the light rail car once they're installed.
Madam Chair, committee member, we would only be able to know that once we have them in service for a sufficient amount of time. The seats that were part of the project or the pilot have been very resilient, so they definitely last longer than current seats that we have.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Gonzalez.
Thank you, and I just have a question about the reason why the original seats were designed, were the cloth one. I mean, all the reasons that you stated for the change to a layperson, they seem pretty obvious. You know, make them of plastic, easy to clean, et cetera, et cetera. So was there a particular reason why it was decided to go with cloth as opposed to plastic at the moment that that decision was made?
Madam Chair, committee member, I was not here at the Met Council at the point that that decision was made. I could only speculate what the decision behind that was, potentially for the preference of customer comfort.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Councilmember Fredson.
Thank you, Chair. I have a question that's not related to the amendment. Is that the question I could ask now, or should I?
Should vote on the amendment.
We should probably vote on that and then move back. So to Councilmember Sterner's amendment to reject the bids, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Nay.
And the motion fails. Next, we move on to a motion to approve business item 2020-56. So we can discuss it.
So moved.
A motion, is there a second?
Second.
Second. Any other discussion? Councilmember Fredson.
Great. Thank you, Chair. And you may have covered this and I might have missed it, but I'm wondering if we explore different colors. First of all, is the color that we're using blue? Second of all, do we explore different colors? The reason why I ask is sometimes certain colors help stuff show up better than other colors, and I know that some sports venues have made the mistake of putting in one kind of color and then everyone can tell the seats are empty. So just want to have to make sure we don't have to revisit this decision anytime soon.
Madam Chair and any member, we will go through a design phase to decide upon the color choice as well as texturing and other aesthetic portions of this project.
Okay.
And we'll address that at that point.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, any other discussion? Councilmember Atlas Ingebrigtsen.
One of the things I've shared previously, and it's going to come up another time today, is I would like to understand, and I get this as a situation where we have one organization company that's bid on this project, and DBE isn't the only aspect of the work that we need to do around advancing equity. So the other piece is really getting at employment diversity. I know my council members, Aaron, has brought this up, that we have to also look at those who are employed by organizations. So I appreciate that in the backup document, there was information provided specifically about the DBE. So that's what I've been asking for, is that we're explicit about addressing that when it comes up, that we're clear about what's happened and what's not happened and why and who's the decision maker. So I appreciate that in this, having that information in here and you speaking to it, so that that's also clear to the public as well. I will also ask that we identify and know when we can, and I don't think there's anyone here from the Southwest LRT office that I'm seeing, but we recently had a presentation by them where they did include information related to, and maybe I'm just short and can't see, so I apologize if you're out there, people.
They're hiding in the back, but,
Is there, okay,
but
there
they
you
may
go.
not be the ones for the
Okay,
question.
good job. But we did have a presentation where they shared employment data, and so I want to know when we can have that and when we can't have that, and I want that to be explicit and I want it to be public. So I will just continue to share what I did this summer, that for me, I will not be voting with that information not provided. Thank you for providing it for this item today.
Just a comment on, so With Southwest LRT, that part of the contract is there were DBE goals and workforce goals. That's why. And we actually have had a conversation, Councilmember Ferguson and I, of how we, because some of that could move through management committee, how we look at that. Okay, if that helps from the difference between the two. All right, additional questions? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. And the motion carries. Next, we are on to business item 2020-62, which is Southwest LRT, Eden Prairie Town Center change order. We have Brian Renzel from Director of Construction, and the next item is 2020-73, Southwest LRT, Amendment 1 to Sub-Recipient Agreement. We have Joan Hollick, the Deputy Project Director. Thank you. Welcome.
Madam Chair, committee members, I'm Brian Renzel, the Director of Construction for the Southwest Light Rail Project. So myself and Joan Hollick are here to present a few business items. I'm going to start off with the background of the Eden Prairie Town Center change, and then I'll present business item 2062 about the change order, and then my colleague Joan Hollick is going to present on business item 2073, Amendment 1 to the Sub-Recipient Agreement with Eden Prairie. So just a little bit of background about this station. In 2015, the station was removed from the project for funding reasons, for budget reduction reasons. And then a few steps happened in 2018. It was added back into the project. And at the end of 2018, we awarded the construction contract to London McCrossin joint venture. At that time, it wasn't in the construction contract. So here in 2019, we sent them a request for proposal to add the station back into the project. Because in 2018, it was approved to be added back into the project, but it wasn't actually in the contract at the time it was awarded. So I'm going to give a little bit of background about what the station looks like. And so you can see here in this picture, it might be a little bit hard to see on the screens, but that kind of lighter green area is called, it says Town Center Station. That's where the station will be located. It's pretty close to, for those who are familiar with Eden Prairie, it's really close to the intersection of Flying Cloud Drive and 494. It's just a few blocks away from there. Redstone Restaurant is pretty close to where this station will be. And so this kind of gives you an aerial view of where the station will be located. Next slide. This is a rendering of what the station will look like when it's constructed. This is looking kind of to the northwest. And you can see here we've got the station itself. You can see on the right of the picture some of the roadway we're going to build, and then some of the sidewalk that we'll build as part of this change order. There's another view looking to the east. And you can see the water tower in the background of this photo, and just, again, more of the station canopy, passenger drop-off area, and just some of the ADA ramps that we'll build as part of this change order. So the change order itself, business item 2062, the scope of this change includes the foundation concrete, so all the foundation work, the steel canopy, the pedestrian walkways, drainage, the roadway for passenger drop-off and pickup, and then we had to add some retaining walls too in this area because we're actually, the alignment gets wider in this area when we add the station, so we had to add some retaining walls to it too. With this change order, we anticipate 18% DB participation from the subcontractors. The goal for the contract is 16%, so we anticipate exceeding the goal by a few percentage points in this change order. So the recommendation is that the Metropolitan Council authorize the Southwest Light Rail Council authorized representative to negotiate and execute a change order with London McCrossin joint venture in the amount not to exceed $11,413,550 to construct the Eden Prairie Town Center Station.
Thank you. Questions for the presenter? Councilmember Ferguson.
Do the same workforce goals for the overall project apply to all the amendments?
Madam Chair, committee member, yes, they do.
Additional questions for the presenter? All right, if not, I would entertain a motion to approve business item 2020-62. So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Joan.
Madam Chair, members, Joan Hollick, Deputy Project Director for SWLRT, here to present business item 2020-73, which is the first amendment to the sub-recipient agreement with the City of Eden Prairie to fund and construct the Eden Prairie Town Center Station. So going back to the history that Brian mentioned, in 2015, after the station was removed from the project, the City of Eden Prairie requested and received $6.1 million from the Council's Transportation Advisory Board to construct the station. The city is providing $1.53 million of local match to that $6.1 million for a total amount of $7.67 million of grant funds towards the station. Now that the cost of construction is known, we are proposing to add an amendment to this agreement to acknowledge that the cost of the change order is in excess of the grant and that the SWLRT project, funds already committed to the project, will be allocated to fund the additional costs of the station.
Thank you. Any additional questions on this business item? Not, I'd entertain a motion to approve business item 2020-73.
So moved.
There's a
Second.
motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion carries. Next, we are on to business item 2020-82, body worn camera council policy and public comment report. We have Leah Palmer. Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, council members. This is my colleague, Officer Pat McCabe, also from the Business Technology Unit, who's been working alongside me and others on the body-worn camera project. As you may recall, we've been before you a couple of times regarding this project. In November, we came before the entire council with a presentation and informational item to give an overview on body-worn cameras and specifically what we may do with them within the Metro Transit Police Department. In December, we came and asked the council to open public comment, which ran through about mid-December through January 30th. During that time, we received only 8 emails, all of which were positive and in support of body-worn cameras. Council held a regular hearing and opened for any public comment in person and did not receive any. So at this time, we are presenting the Transportation Committee with the public comment report, which outlines all 8 of the emails that we received and the positive support that we have gotten, as well as the policy that the Metropolitan Council will be asking the Metropolitan Council to adopt, excuse me. And this has been before the policy committee, I believe it was last Monday, for vetting on their part. We've made some changes alongside the Office of General Counsel and a few others that have weighed in. So we are presenting this also for your review. And with your permission and vote today, we are hoping to move forward to the Management Committee and then to full council for adoption. If there's any questions, we're happy to entertain those.
Thank you. Any questions for the presenter? As noted, this, it doesn't say it on the business item, but this will be a joint item that will go to the Management Committee as well. So with that, I would entertain a motion to approve business item.
So moved.
Okay, motion, is there a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you. All right, next we're on to business item 2020-78, same week item, Metro Mobility Demand Self-Zone Contract. And we have Christine getting here. Welcome.
Hello. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Christine Kennan. I'm the Senior Manager of Metro Mobility, and I'll be introducing the business item today for the Metro Mobility Demand South contract. And with me is Laura Vetter, Assistant Director of Contracts and Procurement. I've invited her to sit at the table for questions relating to that process. Before I introduce the item, since MTS as a whole will be introducing about 6 contracts in the upcoming year for your consideration on the work plan in 2020, including 2 today, I thought I'd review with a few minutes the overall process that we follow that applies to all contracts managed by MTS. In addition to following FTA and state requirements for procurement, MTS adheres to 4 major concepts that provide the foundation for council policy and procedures: competition, consistency, integrity, and openness. The FTA requires a full and open competition for all service contract awards and does not allow for geographic preferences, with local companies and national companies commonly bidding on our service contracts. The FTA guides us to enter into contract terms that are no longer than minimally necessary to accomplish the purposes of the contract, and MTS typically follows a best practice of a 5-year term for our larger contracts with an optional 6th year. Prior to RFP release, the Council's Office of Equal Opportunity evaluates per federal requirement and determines whether to assign disadvantaged business enterprise goals to the project. As OEO did not assign any DBE goals for this project, as part of our commitment to provide opportunity to underutilized businesses, procurement staff contracted transit providers to make them aware of the solicitation. Around the process of the evaluation of the RFP itself, the project is publicly advertised, posted, and managed by procurement, with the solicitation kept open for 30 or more days. A pre-bid conference allows prospective bidders to review the scope of work with the project manager and ask specific questions about the project and the process. Proposers have additional opportunity in the subsequent weeks to submit questions in writing as well. All communication with the council during the procurement process is strictly limited to the council's project manager in procurement, who ensures that all plan holders receive identical information regarding the scope of work and competitive process. An evaluation panel is then assembled and consists of the council's project manager, internal council stakeholders, and external non-council stakeholders as equal voting members. Technical experts also advise the panel in areas of expertise such as service operations, customer care, and finance, with the entire process facilitated by procurement. The specific evaluation factors of the technical proposal are determined in advance and are based on the requirements of the project. These include an evaluation of the quality of the proposal, the qualifications and experience of the proposer, and the proposer's capabilities and ability to deliver the service. Each panel member must individually evaluate each proposal before coming together to reach a consensus decision. The price of the proposal and financial submittals are also evaluated, with the evaluation of the technical proposal and the price carrying roughly an equal weight when determining the best value for the council. So with that, I'll go ahead and introduce the business item itself with some background first. As you know, Metro Mobility is a shared ride, demand response public transportation service for certified riders who are unable to use regular fixed route buses due to a disability or health condition. Metro Mobility service area has 3 geographic zones: Metro West, Metro East, and Metro South, that are served under 3 separate service contracts. Each of these contracts was last executed in 2015 with a 5-year term and an option to extend by 1 year. This contract will continue services for the entirety of the Metro South Zone beginning August 1st, 2020. We issued a request for proposal in November. There were 11 plan holders and 3 proposals were received on January 9th. The 5 panel members consisted of staff from Metro Mobility, MTS Contracted Services, Metro Transit, Washington County, and the Minnesota Council on Disability. 5 criteria were used to evaluate the proposals: proposal quality, proposals qualifications and experience, proposers' capabilities and ability to deliver the service overall, compliance, and proposal price. Transit team had the highest rated financial submittals, the highest rated technical proposal, and the lowest proposed cost. The proposed pricing is within the budget and appears to be fair and reasonable for the 5-year contract term with an option for a 6th year. Additionally, transit team's proposal demonstrated a strong approach to customer service within a paratransit environment and a continual driver wage progression plan that will help retain a qualified workforce through the term of the contract. The Office of OEO did not assign any DBE goals for the project. and there's questions related to that, I'll defer to Tracy Jackson in the audience. Around Thrive, clearly Metro Mobility supports the outcomes and principles of Thrive 2040. We're proud of promoting prosperity and livability in our region, and it's our goal with this transition that we would not disrupt service for our customers that rely on it every day. Funding is included in the operating budget. So with that, I'll ask for the proposed action that the Metropolitan Council authorize the regional administrator to negotiate and execute a contract with Transit Team Incorporated to provide Metro Mobility Demand South Zone service from August 1st, 2020 to July 31st, 2025, with an option to extend one additional year in an amount not to exceed $100,778,685. With that, I'll take questions.
Thank you. So, council members, this is, we'll have an opportunity now just to ask general questions of the presenters. Then we will have the members from the public who wanted to comment come up and each have a couple of minutes. Then we'll be able to move the item and have formal discussion. This is kind of how I'm thinking we will kind of roll this out a little bit so everyone gets an opportunity to ask their questions. So first, we'll open up the questions to the presenters. Councilmember Atlas Ingebrigtsen.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to be really clear about who sets DBE goals and workforce goals. My understanding is it's the project manager's authority that DBE goals are set, or if they are set, that's a conversation that happens with the EEOC. If that's incorrect, I'd like to be corrected about that now.
Madam Chair, committee member, that is incorrect, and I will defer to Tracy Jackson from the Office of Equal Opportunity.
Good afternoon, Chair and Council members. So the DBE goals, OEO is the one who reviews and evaluates all procurements. So we identify what the funding is and whether there's subcontracting opportunities. And then, of course, we work very collaboratively, in this case with MTS, with Christine, looking at any creative opportunities where there could be subcontracting. In this particular procurement, we've identified that there was no subcontracting opportunities, and that because of the availability, just want to give you an idea, we have 8 DBEs in our directory right now that are transportation related. But keep in mind they're a couple employees with up to 5 vans. Some of them just have 1 van that just would not have the capacity to actually bid on a project at this size. Did that answer your question?
Did the workforce goals?
So I can, remember.
Go ahead.
Atlas Ingebrigtsen. So for the workforce goals, that's the Department of Human Rights that sets those goals. And in this case, this is a service contract, so it would not even apply to this particular procurement. For construction over 100,000.
Director Thompson.
Yes, so look, in the discussion we've had about workforce goals and how we're reporting on these contracts, because we know that we do get workforce participation goals reported on construction, how can we be creative and try to get that information? And so we have asked for samples from our contracted providers if they could provide us their workforce goals at a breakdown very similar to what you receive in the construction. And so we, on existing contracts, we have, both First Transit and Transit Team have provided that information on existing contracts. And it's information that they had been reporting to Department of Human Rights through their annual certifications. And so, though it's not a requirement of our procurements and there's goals not set, we believe that we can get the contractors to provide us that information on existing contracts as they go through time, and they've been real receptive. So in our first reporting on that, for example, the 2 of the providers that provided, they had about 50% persons of color on existing contracts were in their labor pool, and 10 to 15% female workforce in that labor pool. So that's an example. And then they break that down on who's hiring, who's interviewing. It's a very, a report that you would see in a construction contract. They have been willing to provide that to us on a voluntary basis, but it's not a requirement of our procurements for service contracts.
Councilmember Ferguson.
So we talked about some of the other providers not necessarily having the ability. I thought my understanding was that we provide the buses, and the thought is that most of the drivers that will be working on this aren't currently employed by these two providers, right? They'll come over from the existing contract. So whoever's taking this contract on it, we're not expecting them to have a fleet of buses and 170 drivers currently on staff that they could roll over into this project. It's really a management of the contract, maintaining the fleet, scheduling drivers, and that part of it, which is different than, so when we say people don't have the capacity, we're not expecting them to have a fleet and 170 drivers working for them today, right?
Chairman, Councilman, that is correct. They do not. That's one of the nice things about this. There isn't a large capital upfront because the council takes on some of that risk. And that's why we pursue the path of having them bid on, minority or women-owned businesses bid on the contracts. And if they were successful in bidding on them, they would receive the entire contract. There wouldn't be a DBE goal in that scenario, but they would have the outcome of winning the entire contract. And so that's the model we've been pursuing in our evidence to expand the pool of bidders, particularly those firms that are interested in this that are minority or woman-owned. They're not, if they were to receive this contract, they would be too large to be certified in those categories. So it's a different way to think about, but it still would achieve the outcome that council is trying to expand those businesses. And we did have one, in this case, one bidder that was minority-owned, not the recommended bidder, but we did steps on this past year to try to expand knowledge of those that haven't been bidding, that might be potential, see if they're interested, let them understand the FTA process and council process for bidding and doing work. And so we've been trying to expand that pool of those that would be aware and maybe potentially bidding.
Councilmember Zarin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think I know the answer to this question, but who currently provides the service?
Madam Chair, Council Member, the provider is currently First Transit.
And in the process of, Madam Chair, if I can have a follow-up question. In the process of scoring the three different providers, was there any weight assessed to the fact that the current provider is already doing the work and what impact that would have on the customers as well as the employees?
Madam Chair, Council Member, because we're committed to an open and fair competitive process, it's important that we don't favor the incumbent when we have a conversation around service delivery and ability to perform the contract. The fact of the matter is both Transit Team and First Transit are proposed well. There are current service providers and performing well for Metro Mobility. So it allows us to have a fair and open competitive process to not favor an incumbent. The transition of contracts is difficult. It is work that we'll be performing, but we're prepared to do that. And we do provide the key infrastructure, the vehicles, and all of the administrative support needed to transition that contract. We've had successful service contract transitions of similar size just within the last year and a half. So while it's discussed, there is no favor for the incumbent. The proposals are evaluated individually, scored individually, and they were ranked as the highest. Transit Team was ranked as the highest proposer.
Thank you.
Councilmember Chambliss.
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Coonan, I've got a question, and you talked about the transitioning, whatever the decision is, and I looked at an older document from April 23rd, 2018, Metro Mobility Agency Contract Award, and it contains a transition plan. For example, says provider initiated transition of qualified incumbent drivers. Transit Team estimates will meet 50% or more of need and will offer the same rate of pay and honor seniority of drivers having from existing employer. I think there's a typo in here. Provider recruitment and hiring activities to broaden driver pool as needed and begin training new hire staff. Obviously, the personnel is very key. If there is a transition, we want to make sure that those people who meet the qualifications that are existing drivers have an opportunity to retain those jobs. My understanding is they are full-time jobs, and an impact of not being selected if they have to reapply would be a big hardship. What is the plan, the transition plan? Has that changed from April?
Yeah, Madam Chair, committee member, the plan would be roughly similar. There would be an aggressive strategy and timing. You know, we have a critical path with that, being that we are looking to start service on August 1st. And so if this follows, and I would intend that this would follow the same pattern, we would hold weekly meetings where the provider is reporting workforce, that there is opportunity and invitation for incumbent employees to gain new jobs if they so choose with the new contract. It is typical and planned as part of the process.
All right, any additional questions for our staff? All right, so we're going to move on to some of the public people for now. You might want to stay fairly close still. First up, we have Paul Slattery from Teamsters Local 120. And if all of those for the public comment, keep your comments to about 3 minutes, please.
I'm sure that mine will be short. I do have a handout I wanted to give. These are the meeting minutes from the April 2018 meeting when we transitioned the agency drivers. And if you could, I don't know if Recording Secretary, if you could pull that up, the meeting minutes from April of 2018. You don't have that ability? I just want to hand these out because I'm just going to make reference to it, and I'll go through my testimony. It'll be quick, and then I'll open it up for questions. I also want to introduce Gerald Paulson. He's here from the community. He uses the Metro Mobility services. Mark Place is one of our drivers out of the Burnsville location, and our business agent, Virgil Stockton, is here too. Madam Chair and members of the Transportation Committee, I'm nervous. My name is Paul Slattery.
Nervous. We don't bite.
I'm the Director of Politics and Organizing for the Teamsters Union, Local 120. This is my third time to come before this committee within the last 2 years to speak in opposition of a business item. The first time was on April 9th, 2018, to speak in opposition of business item 2018-86 concerning the agency contract, and that's where you have the meeting minutes from. There was another time that I raised a question about a no-bid contract that was given to Metropolitan Transportation Network. I took issue with that. I brought it up to the council, but I lost that fight too. So I'm 0 for 2, but I'm back here again because I will not just stand by and let this stuff happen and have our members be affected. I'm here today to speak about my concerns about business item number 2020-78. The issues I'll raise about the South Zone Demand Metro Mobility contract are the same issues I raised about the agency contract in 2018. They are driver retention, driver continuity, and the relationships that these drivers have with the vulnerable adults that they serve. The Teamsters believe that First Transit is the best provider to serve both, or to serve the South Zone of the Metro Mobility contract based on their years of service, their on-time performance, rate, and we question why you would consider changing service providers when the bids are so close. The new service provider is non-union, and our members, like Mr. Place here, do not want to work in a non-union environment. This will cause a disruption in the workforce as union drivers will seek other union jobs before the current contract ends. Maybe they'll apply to be operators. Your operators are union, so they might do that. And we might lose drivers this way. I'm here to advocate for the 170 Metro Mobility drivers that cover the South Zone and the vulnerable adults that use this service. What guarantee do they have that when the contract ends, they'll still have a job? I'm asking you, please, put yourself in their shoes. How would you feel? It's imperative that you keep these members of our community in mind before you award this contract. In the meeting minutes from April 8th, on page 2, I've asked transit team if they would retain the current drivers and if the driver pay and benefits would be impacted. Then, on page 3 of the meeting minutes, transit team president and CFO Mike Richter's response was, it was and is their intention to retain as many of the current qualified drivers as possible, interviewing drivers, discussing hours, shifts, and roles as part of the new contract. Richter said drivers would be transitioned in at their current rate and with their seniority, and will then receive pay increases, which he says are well above the Teamster rates. Richter said transit team's compensation increase is $1 per hour for every year of service. Richter said the highest compensated driver is currently receiving over $31 per hour, and they feel confident in their ability to retain qualified drivers. So this is right in the meeting minutes. And I just got one sentence or paragraph left. I'm asking that whoever gets the contract do the same for the current drivers serving the south zone of the demand Metro Mobility contract and put it in writing. I'm also proposing that we put labor peace and worker retention language in all Met Council contracts to protect the drivers and the clients they serve. I am passionate about protecting the drivers who choose to serve our vulnerable adults. They should not suffer loss when a contract is awarded to a new service provider. There is a current driver shortage in the metro area, and it would be in the best interest of the Met Council and our community to ensure these qualified drivers are utilized. I'm asking this committee and the full Met Council to protect these drivers, the vulnerable adults they serve, and implement labor peace and driver retention language in all Met Council contract proposals. Thank you for your time, and I'm willing to take any questions.
Thank you. We're going to go on to the next public commenter first. We have Paul Johnson from First Transit.
Good afternoon, Madam Speaker, Committee. I appreciate the chance of speaking with you today. My name is Paul Johnson. I'm the General Manager with First Transit, the current provider for the Metro Mobility South Zone. First Transit in the Twin Cities has been a partner with the Met Council for over 30 years. We've proven ourselves as a company that's very dependable, responsive, and we're also a trusted member of the Twin Cities community. Many of our regional leaders and managers like myself live in our service areas, and these are not just our riders, they're our neighbors, our friends, and people we work with. I started with the South Zone nearly 5 years ago when the zone was created in 2015, and I have focused my team's energy and resources from day one on providing the best possible service to our riders. I'm very disappointed that despite our hard work and focus on refinement of our service delivery over the last 5 years, to hear that staff has recommended that the service be awarded to a different provider, not regarding my nearly 220 employees that work at my location in Burnsville. Instead, these committed members of the community, my drivers, call takers, dispatchers, and office staff, might be displaced only due to a roughly 2% price difference in this bid. To guarantee that the new South Zone would be effective in 2015 when it started, First Transit invested a little over $1.1 million to ensure that we gave our staff and drivers a workplace that was positive and would foster long-term success both for our employees and also the Metro Mobility riders that we serve. 2015 saw major service changes like on-board time changes, appointment time monitoring, and reduced reservations hold times. Through all of these changes, we have collaborated with the Met Council and we have ensured that best practices were created and also follow up on that they resulted in improved ridership experiences. We regularly work with the Met Council, Metro Mobility staff, and project admins like Greg, Susan, and Mike all know how well our operation is run and the level of care and commitment that my people put into their work every day. My team's commitment has been unwavering since day one to provide the best service possible and to continuously learn and grow with this service. Why would we allow our dedicated and experienced drivers to continue supporting our shared mission with Metro Mobility? My current employees have their heart and soul into this service. They're not just riders, they're people we live with nearby, our neighbors. We have proven our commitment to not only providing quality service, but also continuing to improve service for the future. Taking the work from the current company, First Transit, whose service is currently at high quality, rather than working in partnership with this company, First Transit, defies our reason and well-rounded best practice in business. The riders we serve daily deserve a more measured approach to give them the service that they deserve and they currently enjoy, rather than creating unnecessary risk. I'm extremely proud of the efforts that my staff puts in every day in delivering excellent, safe, and dependable service for our Metro Mobility riders. I really appreciate my people, and I appreciate the strong working relationships we've created with the Met Council and Metro Mobility over the years. My people and I care deeply about this service and successful delivery thereof and the riders that we serve. We're asking the Transportation Committee to take another review of this recommendation and consider the significant message that this delivers. Thanks.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Mike Richter from Transit Team.
Madam Chair, committee members, thank you very much. My name is Mike Richter. I'm the president and CFO of Transit Team. I again feel like this is a bit of deja vu. We were in fact here talking about very similar issues in April of 2018 when we were awarded the Metro Mobility Agency Service contract. The rationale behind that award was Transit Team had the highest rated financial submittals, the highest rated technical proposal, and the lowest proposed cost. Similar to the award or the rationale behind the award here. That startup went very smooth. We hired 100 plus drivers in a 5-month period. First Transit, the entirety of the concern in 2018 was around the drivers losing their jobs. Hundreds of drivers were going to lose their jobs. Yet when we approached First Transit about trying to transition those and work together to try to transition those drivers, we had a door shut in our face. We were able to, through some grassroots recruiting, recruit about 26 of their drivers. So outside of those 26 experienced drivers, when our goal was 50, we were able to hire an additional 75 plus more drivers to put on the service and to start the contract up very smoothly. So while the argument here, at least from the Teamsters in this case, is that we're going to lose jobs, we actually created 75 more jobs in the region. And our intention is to do the same thing. We would love to recruit as many of the First Transit drivers as possible and transition this service and make it smooth by maintaining as many of their employees as possible, but it all depends on whether or not they're going to give us the access to have those conversations. We're experienced. Transit Teams have been doing this for 30 years. We're not only a Metro Mobility demand service provider, but we're also an agency service provider. Metro Mobility and paratransit service is the core to our business. It's something we're passionate about, and it's something that the levels of performance that we provide exceeds our competition. We're local. We're a family-owned business. We invest in our employees. We know that employees want to feel valued, and they want, and it helps contribute to employee retention. In addition to a highly subsidized and industry-leading benefit package, as the Teamsters mentioned, all of our employees are eligible for a full dollar increase for every year of service. That driver in 2018 who was making $31 is now making $32 an hour. If we compare that to the information that was provided in the RFP regarding the South Metro drivers and their wage scale, the highest South Metro driver is currently earning $23.95 an hour. That individual has been employed by First since 1993. If we compare that to the employees who are working at Transit Team since 1993, our average rate is $28.33, a $4.38 per hour increase, or 18.29% over their top end. That's $9,000 a year for a full-time employee that we're paying over what First Transit is paying. Additionally, nearly 10% of all our employees are making more than that $23.95 an hour. We could easily be more profitable, pay our drivers less, not subsidize our benefit packages high with more cost to the company. However, transit team, it's not about numbers. It's a family. We treat our employees the same way we would want to be treated if the roles were reversed. Lastly, we're local. We're here. We're quite literally invested in the Twin Cities. Headquarters are in Minneapolis. We have a facility in Maple Grove. We're investing in a third facility in Burnsville as a part of this project. It allows us the space to be able to grow into future contracts with the council. It allows us the space to be extremely competitive. Again, within 2 years, providing the lowest cost service and still able to make the service work from a profitability standpoint at the company level. Last comment, all of the money earned for our services stays local. Payroll dollars are paid to Minnesota residents. Our vendors are local. Taxes for profits made by the company are paid to the state of Minnesota. Our business stays local and our taxpayer dollars stay local. And the same cannot be said by all MTS contractors. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you to all of you who came up and spoke. We really appreciate hearing from all of you. So now we will go back. So are there any other questions for the presenters at this moment? All right, if not, I would entertain a motion to approve business item 2020-78, which is the same week item. If we move the item, we can have further discussion.
So moved.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Any other discussion? Councilmember Fredson.
Thank you, Chair, and fellow council members. So I have a couple concerns with this proposed action. One is just the timing. So we received notice of this on Friday afternoon, and here we are on Monday afternoon and expected to take action for a same week decision on Wednesday of this week. And that provides us very little time to address concerns. And I'm grateful for Metropolitan Council staff that were answering questions on Friday afternoon and this weekend and today. But I'm concerned that affected customers and the impacted workforce, right, doesn't have the same opportunity to respond and make their voices heard today. But most of all, I'm concerned about the potential disruption to the service that we're providing. The disruptions to service was not considered in the panel's recommendation. And according to MTS staff, so these service providers, the drivers, they have good relationships with their customers. They know the service, they know the routes, and they have a proven track record, 5 years or more. It's been acknowledged that switching contractors is difficult. It requires a lot of work setting up a new facility with fiber and technology, and a new vendor will need to hire and train staff, and that's been discussed. It's common sense to me that if a service provider has been doing the work, if they've been doing a good job, if they want to continue providing the services without disruption, that we, the council, would consider the cost of disruption and the benefit of maintaining the service and the relationships. And I'm also concerned, but not factoring into this decision today, the disruption that this decision would have on the workforce. It's been 170 or maybe even as high as 220 working people, a majority people of color who have good paying jobs with benefits. And it doesn't seem right that we would not factor the disruption into their lives, into this decision, especially at a time when we're facing a driver shortage and we're striving to deliver the highest quality service to our customers and communities. I understand that First Transit wasn't the lowest proposal, but in my opinion, it's in the council's best interest to avoid the disruption in service, which may be debatable, but what's not debatable in my position is the disruption to these relationships. These relationships are priceless, in my opinion. So I would like to offer an amendment for the council to consider, which I would distribute now, right? So, Madam Chair, I'd move to amend the proposed action for business item 2020-78, same week, by striking Transit Team Incorporated and insert First Transit in its place, and by striking $100,778,685 and inserting $116,422,094 in its place. So the proposed action would be amended to read as follows: that the Metropolitan Council authorize the regional administrator to negotiate and execute a contract with First Transit to provide Metro Mobility Demand South Zone service from August 1, 2020 to July 31, 2025, with an option to extend one additional year in an amount not to exceed $116,422,094.
So we have an amendment to the motion, so we will first take action on the amendment. So is there a second for the
Second.
amendment? There's a second, so now we're going to discuss the amendment. So discussion on the amendment?
Well, the discussion, Madam Chair, if I could, I think in the testimony that we heard today, it's clear that the First Transit employees don't want to work for the first team, that's for the transit team. They weren't able to retain the employees and bring them over. So I'm in favor of retaining First Transit for this contract, and because of the things mentioned by Fredson, is that this would have an impact on our customers. There's a transition there, and it's going to have a continued impact on the customers because we're not going to be able to retain the employees that have been providing the service, and there's no guarantee that we're going to be able to reconnect them to employment.
All right, additional questions? I have a question for Christine. First of all, was service considered in the contract review?
Yes, Madam Chair, it was. One of the factors of consideration was the ability to deliver the service and overall compliance with the requirements for the proposal. So it definitely was. To clarify my earlier comment, I think I was answering the question about whether or not the service transition was considered, and I answered it in context of the ability to favor the incumbent as a result. And just to clarify my answer, it was discussed in that context. Certainly, the ability to deliver the service was a factor, an evaluation factor for the panel, and transit team did come out on top with the overall evaluation of that proposal.
Councilmember Chambliss?
I'm confused. So you're saying that service factored in, but you didn't want it to be connected to the incumbent. How are those two connected?
Madam Chair, member of the committee, forgive me if I'm not explaining this well. It's clearly the ability to transition the service and the capacity of the proposers to do that is very much considered. The impact that would have if we were to favor an incumbent in order to lessen that burden is not something we're allowed to consider because we can't favor the incumbent in the competitive bid process. The tenet of contracting service contracts like this is there could be a potential of turnover, and so we are looking at the ability of the proposer to transition that contract versus favoring the incumbent per se.
Was that what you meant by your question?
Yes, that service can be transitioned fairly quickly and seamlessly. We've seen it done.
And
Director Thompson.
Okay.
Madam Chair, maybe if you could clarify what we ask of them in their proposal, if they're not the incumbent, what they have to propose in a proposal for transition of.
Thank you. There was a startup plan required as part of the proposal that was evaluated. Their hiring and retention strategy that was evaluated. Their ability to acquire facility, start up that facility, hire management, supervisor team that they had proposed, put them in place. All of that was specified in the requirements and proposed by all the proposers and evaluated.
If I may. So what I think I'm hearing you say is that you're just focusing in on service against service, and that's it.
We're focusing on the ability to deliver the service as it's required in the contract, including the startup plan, to transition that service and begin it. That was definitely considered and required as in the RFP solicitation.
Okay. Councilmember Ferguson?
So just, as I look at this, we're suggesting that we're going to spend $16 million more, and it sounds like the workers are going to get paid less, so which means a lot more profit for the company, which, one, that on its face doesn't seem to make sense, given that what we just heard that the new companies this generally pays more for a lot of their employees. The other is I just think it's a dangerous precedent for us to, instead of if people wanted to go out to rebid under different terms, that's one thing. But for us to take our judgment, having not reviewed all the proposal, not reviewed the market, and place that judgment over the procurement group, and in addition, we know, that we have significant disparities. So if we start doing this throughout all of our contracts, we're going to maintain the status quo. We're going to maintain the level of disparities we have, both in the businesses winning contracts and the people that are hired by those businesses. I just think it's a horrible precedent for us to decide why bother with the contract proposal. Why not just go sit down with First Trans and say, what do you want to make on this? And we'll cut you a deal without even worrying about having a bid process altogether if this is the way we want to do business. I just don't think that that's the way we should be doing business.
Laura, would you have any comment at all about the implications of changing the proposed amendment, or to the proposed amendment?
Sure. Madam Chair, I actually would defer that question to the Office of General Counsel. They've reviewed that same question today.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, we did talk about these things, and one thing we look to when we do procurements like this is whether the council is complying with FDA guidance and regulations on procurements. Not only because of the future commitment of federal money, but because if we also get in the future as well, then we have to be FDA compliant in order to use and have FDA assistance for our projects. And that's one of the reasons why the FDA says it has to be an open and fair competition, and it has to be equally accessible to any responsive proposer or bidder. They have to have a fair opportunity to compete.
Thank you. Councilmember Cummings.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The evaluation panel, was this a unanimous recommendation?
Madam Chair, member of the committee, yes, it was.
Thank you.
Additional questions?
I had a question for the statement.
Okay.
I just want to share that I'll be voting no on the amendment, also be voting no on the entire project. I shared earlier this summer and earlier today, just as a reminder for me, having information about the goals and having that be an explicit part of all information that we're provided to the public for transparency is something that's required for me to make a vote on decisions like this. I also wanted to share to that end my support for making sure we have equity and growing diversity in our workforces and teams and those that we're doing business with, and my support for the value and the tremendous importance that unions have played in our positive workplaces and all the benefits that we benefit from daily. And I hope we can find positive ways to move forward on both of those issues.
Okay, any additional discussion relative to the amendment? Councilmember Gonzalez.
Just a question / statement is regarding whether the customers were asked their opinion about whether or not they were satisfied with the current service. I mean, we just had some member of the public about an hour ago express her experience with some of our services. I will suggest that customer feedback should be as important as any other criteria that we use in evaluating our contracts. And I don't know if that question was asked or if our customers were asked to give their feedback on the level of satisfaction with the current service in this particular case.
If I may, I just want, so our TAC representative here was, so one of the people who was on of the review committee was from the Council on Disability, which is what you participate in. And I'm sure, I don't know if you had any insight into the process or.
Well, as it pertains to details, I'd like to defer to Christine. I realize that, thank you for recognizing me. I'm not a voting member of this body, so unless I'm recognized by the body, I cannot talk during an amendment that's on the floor. That's not true? Okay, whatever. So my day job as the ADA director of the Council on Disability and an individual who has a disability, I'm not Metro Mobility qualified, but I have a non-apparent disability, our role is to be representative of folks with disabilities in the entire state. Again, this is the hat I wear for my day job, not for my TAC role. There is clearly some overlap there. I appreciate Committee Member Gonzalez's point. I think that is the most important point, and it didn't come up until, tidbits here and there through the discussion, but towards the end of the discussion, did it actually come up as, who did ask the people? We have a saying in our community, nothing about us without us. That is essentially what drives my day job. The Council on Disability's role is we spend a lot of time making sure that bureaucracy takes folks with disabilities into consideration, that the private sector does, and that there's also a culture change to reiterate the previous committee member who I don't know your name, so I will not say that, but we love to have disability be included in the equity discussion, and that's one of our main goals as a state agency. I try to bring that to my role as TAC chair, and I definitely did bring that to the selection process. Again, I don't think I can discuss details about what we did, but I can say that your question, Committee Member Cummings, was about unanimous. It was not hard to reach that decision.
Thank you, and I appreciate. I just want to recognize that our staff is they're cognizant of the need to have the voice of the customer as part of the discussion. Director Thompson.
I think when we think about the customer input and how we would incorporate that into an evaluation of a selection, there's a very strong customer input and monitoring of all our existing contracts. Like that issue that was brought up tonight, we will investigate that and bring that back to that contractor. We'll know at that one. But throughout the year, we have our input sessions of the customers of our Metro Mobility convenings and other inputs where our contractors are there listening and we're listening. And we also have very clear performance measures that are customer driven and customer focused that allows us we know what's important for our customers and good service. And we put those into the contract and monitor the performance of that contract. And then if they're not meeting those performances, we have contractual ways to bring them into compliance from a customer service standpoint. I would say, though, there's having customer feedback about the contractors in the evaluation could be a challenge because the customers can only provide feedback on contractors that we have in the region. Mm-hmm. So that could imbalance whether we have a new vendor that came into that the customers were not familiar with or had not experienced, they wouldn't be able to provide feedback or customer comments on that. So we'd have to think through if we're not getting the right customer input into design of the procurements, that's one thing, but scoring an evaluation based on customer feedback of the individual contractor could be a challenge in the fair competition guidelines, but it's something we'd have to look into more further.
Yep. Councilmember Chambliss.
Yeah, I just want to say that I think it's really important to have our processes be done in such a way that it has integrity and that we can hold the people that are responsible for the process accountable. That includes a fair opportunity to compete. It includes the staff execution of our policy and our procedures, and also the committees that are supporting the council. And we have to trust that, and we have to hold people accountable to do the right thing, and that they're going to do and execute their jobs right, and have the ability to improve where we need to improve, whether it's for our customer service, whether it's for how we do our hiring and retention, our transition plans. That is really crucial for me. If we just kind of let that go, then I'm going to have a hard time, living with myself and the decisions that I make. And I think as a council, we really need to take that into consideration. And because of that, and I will not be voting on the amendment that is before me. I won't be voting yes for it.
Okay.
Sorry.
Wait a sec. There's a lot of things on fire, so I got it right. We could certainly request to, at some point, to have staff come back and talk about the transition, because we'll have other contracts that come before us like this, and that would be actually, I think, helpful just as a learning experience. Councilmember Fredson.
Thank you, Chair. I would just add, I feel like there has been a very open and fair process, and it's led to this recommendation. I think for me, it boils down to, this council has the ability and duty to make a decision on what it feels is the best interest of the council. And in this case, for me, it all boils down to relationships.
Enough. All right. Any other discussion on the amendment? All right. If not, we've already had a motion and a second. So this is a vote on the amendment. All those in favor of the amendment as offered by Councilmember Fredson, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? No.
No.
And the motion doesn't carry. So we're back to the original motion. We had a motion and a second on the original on the business item. Is there any other discussion on that? If not, I would entertain then all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Nay?
Nay.
Nay.
So that was against the contract.
Yes.
Okay. You got everybody?
We call for a divisional.
Thank you. Can we please, all those who voted in favor of business item 2020-78, say wait. There you go. All those opposed? Thank you very much. Just wanted to make sure. I wasn't sure I heard everybody, so thank you. Motion
Chair,
carries.
I didn't see your vote. Could you?
I put 4.
4. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you all. I appreciate it. And again, I do appreciate all of those that came out to speak tonight. It is really helpful for us to hear from different sides. So thank you very much. Next, we're on to business item 2020-79, also a same week item. It's St. Paul and Anoka County Transit Service. We have John.
Good evening, Madam Chair, committee members. I'm here to bring before you a business item for contracting a different portion of service that MTS manages. This is part of our regular route service, and the role of contracted service in the regular route arena is primarily to contract out those routes that are lower in productivity, so a little bit lower ridership routes, and those routes can be operated in vehicles that are smaller than the standard 40-foot transit bus that is operated by Metro Transit. And we usually then operate in the contract environment in a little bit lower cost arena. So these routes are operated with this lower cost in the contracted world, where we wouldn't be able to sustain that service under the Metro Transit, the Met Council cost structure. Specifically, this service includes 6 routes. This is the St. Paul and Anoka County contract. This includes 6 routes, 3 in St. Paul, Route 16, 67, and 84 in St. Paul, and Route 801, 805, and 831 in Anoka County. The advertisement, the RFP was issued on December 27th of 2019. The proposals were received on January 28th of 2020. There were 12 plan holders and 3 proposers. There was a panel of 5 members, including 2 MTS, 1 Metro Transit, and 2 external members that reviewed the proposals. And the unanimous recommendation of that panel follows. I do want to make a couple of additional comments before I get to the proposed action, and that is that this contract was procured under federal guidelines, which means 2 things. Well, primarily the point under the federal guidelines is that we did an independent cost estimate before we released the RFP. And the proposer certainly came in under that independent cost estimate. And so the First Transit, who is the recommended proposer, was the best value to the council, had the best technical and cost proposal for the council. So with that, I recommend that the Metropolitan Council authorize the regional administrator to negotiate and execute a contract with First Transit Incorporated to provide regular route transit service under the St. Paul and Anoka County Contract 19P363 from June 14, 2020 through June 30, 2025 in an amount not to exceed $27,095,290. I'll take any questions you have.
Thank you. Any questions for the presenter? If
So
not,
moved.
motion, is there a second?
Second.
Any other discussion?
Good. Just sorry, one.
Councilmember
Who's
Ferguson?
the incumbent for this one?
Madam Chair and committee members, there are 2 incumbents on this service. The first 3 routes that I mentioned, Route 16, 67, and 84, are currently, well, 3 incumbents to be honest with you. Route 16 and 84 are currently operated by MTN, Metropolitan Transportation Network. Route 67 is currently operated by Metro Transit, and that will move into our contracted arena with this contract. Routes 801, 805, and 831 are operated by First Transit. And that contract by them is held through Anoka County. Currently, we have an intergovernmental agreement with Anoka County. So it's a mix of service. We're all going to consolidate this into a single contract for ease of management, so on.
Thank you. Additional questions? Any other discussion? All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion
Nay.
carries. Okay. Thank you. Motion carries. So for things moving on to full council, we will have, I believe, items 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 7 can go on consent. I would say 5, 8, and 9, and 10, because we had dissenting votes on 9 and 10, will go non-consent. Does that work? Make sense? Okay. And then, very good. Then moving on to information. There's my change. Our only information tonight is our work plan. So what I would say, basically, we're not going to go into details with it tonight. It's been a long meeting. The information was provided in our agenda on the list. So take a look. Usually what we do is we just have a conversation about things we want to add, things we want to change. You feel free to email Director Thompson or General Manager Koistra, and we'll talk in more detail at our next meeting if that is okay with the rest of the committee. All right, very good. Then I would entertain a motion to
So
adjourn.
moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.